My name's Ava, and if you had told me a couple of years ago that I'd be where I am now, I'd have laughed you out of the room. Back then, I was all about chasing stories, living off caffeine, and making my mark in the world of journalism. PR was just a blip on my radar, something I thought I'd never touch. Life's funny that way, huh? This story really kicks off on what I thought was just another Tuesday. I was in this cozy little cafe downtown, glued to my phone, deep in conversation about some PR campaign that was giving me a headache. The kind of talk where if you're not in the biz, it sounds like I'm speaking another language. Yeah, I get it. But if we pivot the narrative towards a more grassroots approach, we can totally bypass the traditional media gatekeepers. I remember saying, probably a bit louder than necessary. I've always had a voice that carries. And there's this guy, sitting all by himself at the next table. Couldn't have been more than 30, dressed casual, but neat. He's got this look on his face, like he's trying to solve a puzzle, but missing half the pieces. I wrap up the call, let out a long sigh, and that's when I notice him staring. Not in a creepy way, more bewildered than anything. What? Never heard a woman talk shop before? I shot at him, half annoyed, half amused. He just blinks, then breaks into this easy, disarming grin. Actually, I was trying to figure out what language you were speaking. Sounded like English, but I couldn't make head or tail of it. I couldn't help but laugh. It's called PR speak. It's English, but for masochists who like their jobs a little too much. He chuckles, slides his chair a bit closer. Ethan, he introduces himself, offering a hand. Ava, I reply, shaking his hand. His grip's firm, honest. So, Ava, you always talk about work like it's some kind of secret society, he teases, taking a sip of his coffee. Only when it scares the normals away. I quip back. We both laugh, and just like that, the ice isn't just broken, it's shattered. Ethan's got a way of making you feel like you're the only two people in the room. He listens like the words you're saying are the most important thing in the world. We talked about everything and nothing, work, music, the latest series binge. It was easy, comfortable. Before I knew it, hours had passed. He's telling me about his job as a plumbing wholesale manager, which, honestly, I didn't even know was a thing. But he talks about it with this passion, this genuine love for something so mundane. It was refreshing. You actually enjoy talking about pipes and fittings? I ask, raising an eyebrow. As much as you enjoy pivoting narratives, he shoots back, and we're in stitches again. By the time we part ways, it's late. The cafe staff are politely, but pointedly, stacking chairs on tables around us. Ethan scribbles his number on a napkin, slides it across the table. Call me, maybe, he says, a playful challenge in his eyes. Maybe, I mimic, tucking the napkin into my purse. Walking home, I couldn't shake the grin off my face. Little did I know, that random Tuesday in a random cafe would lead me here. Ethan and we clicked. It wasn't just attraction, it was like finding a piece of yourself you didn't know was missing. Fast forward a bit, and Ethan and I are knee-deep in what can only be described as the chaos of wedding planning. If you've never planned a wedding, let me tell you, it's like trying to juggle cats. And not just any cats, but cats that are on fire and extremely opinionated about floral arrangements and seating charts. I don't get it, Ethan said one evening, scratching his head as we looked over our ever-growing guest list. I thought you'd be all about having a big blowout wedding. You know, the kind where you need to hire a second city just to fit all the guests. I laughed, tossing another crumpled-up version of the guest list into the bin. Nah, that's not me. I've always dreamed of something small, you know? Just us, our families, and a handful of friends. I don't need a circus. Just, something real, something us. Ethan looked at me, a mix of surprise and admiration in his eyes. You're full of surprises, Ava. Alright, let's do it your way. But we're not skimping on the cake, deal? Deal, I agreed, and just like that, our modest wedding plans were in motion. The day itself was a blur of laughter, happy tears, and way too much cake. Ethan was right about not skimping on that. Our families and a few close friends gathered in this quaint little venue we'd found. It was nothing fancy, but it was perfect for us. Ethan's mom, Sylvia, was there, of course. She was hard to read, always had been. But today, she seemed, well, if not exactly thrilled, at least not openly hostile to the whole affair. "You sure you don't want a bigger do, dear?" Sylvia asked me, as we were getting ready. Her tone was somewhere between concerned and condescending, a skill I reckon she'd perfected over the years. "Ethan and I are sure, Sylvia. We wanted it to be intimate, just the people who matter most to us," I replied, keeping my voice steady and friendly. Was all she said, but she left it at that. I considered it a win. The ceremony was short and sweet. Ethan looked so handsome I thought my heart might burst right out of my chest. And when he said his vows, promising to love and cherish me through all the craziness life might throw our way, I believed him. Not because they were fancy words, but because they were true, spoken from the heart. After the ceremony, during the reception, Ethan's uncle, a burly man who'd had a bit too much to drink, clapped a heavy hand on Ethan's shoulder and slurred, "You two, you're good together." Not like some of these fancy folks with their big weddings, and even bigger divorces. Ethan grinned. "Thanks, Uncle Joe. We think so too." And then there was dancing. I'm not much of a dancer, more of a flailer, really, but with Ethan, it didn't matter. We were clumsy and completely out of sync, but it was perfect because it was us. As the night wound down, Ethan pulled me close, his voice soft in my ear. "Best day of my life, Ava. I can't believe you're my wife." I rested my head on his shoulder, feeling the weight of the day start to lift. "Best day of mine too, Ethan. Here's to us and to doing things our way." After the wedding buzz settled down, Ethan and I got hit by a serious case of nest building. We were on the hunt for our perfect starter home, something cozy but with enough room to grow into. The weekends were spent scrolling through listings and hitting open houses. It was exciting but, damn, was it exhausting. One lazy Sunday afternoon, as we were knee-deep in house listings and mortgage calculators, Sylvia dropped by. She had this knack for popping up unannounced, like a sitcom neighbor without the laugh track. "Whatcha doing?" she asked, peering over our shoulders at the laptop screen, her tone casual, but eyes sharp. "House hunting," Ethan replied, not looking up. "We're thinking of buying." Sylvia perked up at that, her interest suddenly piqued. "Oh, buying, are we? Moving up in the world?" I shot Ethan a look, trying to gauge his reaction. He just shrugged, the universal husband signal for, "Let's not make a scene." We showed her some of the places we were considering. She had an opinion on everything, the location, the layout, even the color of the freaking curtains in the photos. Then, out of the blue, she dropped the bomb. "Since you two are doing so well, maybe you could help me out with something. My living room could use a facelift, a new couch, maybe a TV stand." Ethan and I exchanged looks. This was new territory. What do you mean?" I asked, trying to keep the skepticism out of my voice. Sylvia waved a hand, as if she was asking for something as simple as borrowing a cup of sugar. "Oh, you know, just a little financial help. It's not like you can't afford it." Ethan coughed, a clear sign he was uncomfortable. "Mom, that's not really..." But Sylvia cut him off. "Ethan, darling, I've given you everything. The least you could do is help your old mother out." The room got tense. I could see Ethan wrestling with himself, the guilt Sylvia was laying on thick. "Okay, Mom. We'll see what we can do," he finally said, deflating like a balloon. I was floored. Just like that? We were going to dip into our house fund for Sylvia's living room makeover? After Sylvia left, with a smug little smile and a list of furniture stores, Ethan and I had it out. "Ethan, what the hell? Why'd you just roll over like that?" I was pacing, my hand slicing the air, for emphasis. He was on the couch, head in hands. "Ava, it's my mom. What was I supposed to do? Say no?" "Yes. That's exactly what you were supposed to say." I shot back. We'd been saving for months, and now we're supposed to just hand it over for her living room? Ethan stood up, his frustration matching mine. I know. It's just, she's my mom. It's complicated. Complicated doesn't even start to cover it, Ethan. We're talking about our future here. Not just some new furniture for your mom. The argument went back and forth, a tennis match of frustration and guilt. It was like a merry-go-round of frustration. We finally agreed that Ethan went too far by giving Sylvia access to our shared account, a decision we both regretted pretty quickly. But agreeing doesn't fix the feeling that our plans just took a major hit. That night, as we lay in bed, the air still thick between us, Ethan whispered, "I'm sorry, Ava. We'll figure this out. Together." "Yeah," I whispered back, not convinced, but wanting to believe. Together. After the whole living room saga, you'd think we'd get a breather. But nope, life had more in store for us, especially with Sylvia. This time, the battlefield was social media. Yeah, that's right. Facebook, Instagram, you name it. Sylvia suddenly became tech-savvy and found a new way to stir the pot. One evening, I'm scrolling through my feed, and I see a notification pop up. Sylvia commented on one of my posts. A picture from a work event, me in front of this big crowd, mic in hand, doing my PR thing. Her comment? Must be nice to travel and eat out all the time while some of us can barely afford a coffee. I stared at the screen, my blood boiling. "Ethan!" I yelled, not caring that it was past 11 p.m. and he was probably dozing off. He came running, phone in hand, a look of "what now?" plastered on his face. "Look at this." I shoved my phone in his face, pointing at Sylvia's comment. He squinted, read, and then let out a long sigh. "Mom's at it again, huh?" At it again? She's practically painting me as some sort of millionaire while she plays the poor, neglected mother. It's embarrassing, Ethan. I was pacing now, every word punctuated with a stab of my finger in the air, as if I could physically grab my frustration and fling it out the window. Ethan grabbed my shoulders, forcing me to look at him. "Ava, let's just talk to her, okay? Maybe she doesn't realize." "Doesn't realize?" I snorted, pulling away. "She knows exactly what she's doing. This is about that damn living room and Hawaii." "I'll call her in the morning," Ethan promised, but we both knew it was a band-aid on a bullet wound. The next day, true to his word, Ethan called Sylvia. I only caught a sight of the conversation, but it was enough to paint a pretty clear picture. "Mom, you can't post stuff like that." "Yes, I get you're joking, but..." "No, Mom, it looks bad." "Ava's upset." "Well, maybe think before you post?" It went on like that, for a good 20 minutes. Ethan, ever the peacemaker, trying to reason with an immovable object. When he finally hung up, he looked like he'd gone 10 rounds with a heavyweight. "She'll think about it," he said, but we both knew think about it meant find a new angle to cause drama. And she did. Her next move? Comments turned into direct messages, asking for this and that, hinting about how nice Hawaii looked this time of year. It was like dealing with a social media mob boss. Finally, I had enough. "Ethan, this has to stop. It's either your mom or me at this point." We were in the kitchen, a half-eaten pizza between us, the epitome of domestic bliss if it weren't for the looming mother-in-law-shaped cloud over our heads. Ethan, ever the diplomat, sighed. "Okay, I'll sort it. For real this time." But here's the kicker. Despite our grand plans of cutting off Sylvia's financial lifeline and blocking her online, we caved. Yeah, you heard me. We paid for Sylvia's damn trip to Hawaii. Why? Maybe it was guilt, maybe it was exhaustion, or maybe we just wanted a moment's peace. Whatever it was, it worked. Sylvia was over the moon, spending weeks packing and shopping for her tropical getaway as if she was fleeing the country. New clothes, new luggage, you name it. Ethan and I? We just went back to our lives, me to my work, him to his, both of us trying not to think about the dent in our savings. After Sylvia's trip from Hawaii, it felt like she had developed a taste for luxury, or at least, our money. It was like a switch had flipped. The ask started small, then got bigger and bolder. Ethan and I were her personal ATM, and she wasn't shy about making withdrawals. "Ethan, your mom's at it again," I grumbled one evening after dinner, waving my phone at him with the latest message from Sylvia, a thinly veiled request for a small loan for some new luxury she'd taken a fancy to. Ethan, bless him, looked like a man on the edge. "I know, Ava. I'll handle it," he sighed, scrubbing a hand down his face. "Handle it? How, Ethan?" "By saying, please stop, Mom? Because that's working out great so far," I snapped, frustration getting the better of me. He didn't respond right away, just stared at the table, jaw working. Finally, he looked up. "I'll talk to her. Seriously, this time. No more Mr. Nice Guy." And he did talk to her, or at least he tried. But Sylvia? She turned on the waterworks, painting herself as the victim, saying we didn't appreciate all she'd done for us. "I'll show you," she'd hissed through tears when Ethan stood his ground. At the time, we didn't know what she meant. We should have paid more attention. Fed up, I blocked her on every social platform I could. Out of sight, out of mind, I thought foolishly. If only it were that simple. The day she showed up at our house, flaunting those car keys, was like a scene from some twisted game show. "Look what I got." Sylvia beamed, as if she'd won an award rather than raided our savings. Ethan and I exchanged a look of horror. "Mom, how? Where did you get the money for this?" Ethan's voice was a mix of disbelief and dawning realization. Sylvia didn't even have the decency to pretend. "Oh, Ethan gave me access to your savings. Needed a new ride," she said, as casual as if she was talking about borrowing a cup of sugar. "Our house fund? You used our house fund?" My voice was barely a whisper, shock freezing the anger into a solid lump in my chest. Ethan's face went from pale to ash. We both knew what this meant, but seeing the numbers confirmed on our online banking was a gut punch. $260,000 gone. Just like that. Our dreams, our future, reduced to a pittance of $15,000. The fallout was nuclear. Ethan was in shock, repeating, "I didn't think she'd actually do it," like a mantra. Me? I went from furious to outright livid. "She played us, Ethan. Played us like a cheap fiddle." "We have to do something," Ethan said, the fight finally sparking in him. This is theft." "Yeah, and it's war," I added, my mind racing through our options. Legal action, cutting ties, confronting Sylvia, it was all on the table now. Ethan nodded, determination replacing the shock. "We'll get it back, Ava. Every penny." When the truth came out that Sylvia had plundered our savings, Ethan was beyond furious, he was incandescent with rage. "Mom, how could you? You've just steamrolled over every line of decency. Your gall it's indescribable." His words were like bullets, aimed straight at her heartlessness. But Sylvia? She just cackled, that awful sound that made my skin crawl. "Oh, Ethan, please. Ava's raking it in. You'll fill that house fund up again in no time," she said, dismissing our financial ruin like it was a minor inconvenience. That was the final straw for Ethan. "Out. Now. And I'm suing you," he declared, his voice cold enough to freeze hell over. Her laughter at that moment was bitter, filled with scorn. "You wouldn't dare. I'm your mother," she retorted, as if that bond gave her immunity. But Ethan was done playing her games. The second she was out the door, he was on the phone, securing our accounts and pulling together all the paperwork for a lawsuit. Sylvia might have thought it was all a bluff, but the fire in Ethan's eyes said otherwise. When the reality of the lawsuit hit her, Sylvia's reaction was volcanic. She bombarded Ethan's phone with calls, hurling accusations and insults, trying to guilt-trip him into backing down. But Ethan stood firm, cutting off all communication with her. The courtroom drama that unfolded was like something out of a bad TV show. It dragged our family drama into the glaring light of public scrutiny. But Ethan, he held his ground, presenting evidence with unflinching resolve. And when the judge finally made their ruling, it was like a weight was lifted off our shoulders. Sylvia was ordered to repay every single penny she had taken, starting with the flashy car she had bought to flaunt her theft. The fallout for Sylvia was swift and severe. She had to sell off everything, every luxury item she'd bought with our money, to pay us back. It was more than just a financial reckoning, it was a stark lesson in respect and boundaries. She had crossed a line, and now she was paying the price. For Ethan and me, it was a slow process of picking up the pieces. Watching our account slowly recover was a bittersweet victory. It was a harsh reminder of the ordeal we'd been through, but it also brought a sense of closure. It felt like, finally, we might be able to move forward, to rebuild our dreams on our terms, without the shadow of Sylvia's greed looming over us. After the whole legal mess with Sylvia, Ethan and I finally got to buy our dream house. It was small but beautiful, exactly what we'd been hoping for. I remember walking through each room over and over, still half in disbelief. After everything, our dream was real. We had our home. We decided to throw a housewarming party, even though the place was pretty much a big, empty box. No furniture, nothing. But that didn't stop us. Our friends came over, and we just embraced the emptiness. Sat on the floor, spread out some snacks and drinks, and had ourselves an Oriental-style housewarming. It was different, kind of funny, but amazing. Laughing and sharing stories on the bare floor, it hit me how much we'd gone through to get here. This empty house wasn't just a space, it was a testament to our resilience, our fight for a future we wanted. Sure, it was unconventional, but it was ours. And in that moment, with our friends around us, it felt like the fullest, richest place in the world. "Hey, this might not be the fanciest housewarming," I said, looking around at our friends. "But it's definitely the most memorable." Ethan caught my eye and grinned. "Who needs furniture when you've got good company, right?" Through the grapevine, those chats over fences or quick exchanges in the grocery store, we heard about Sylvia's latest chapter. It turned out, the consequences of her actions ran deeper than just our drama. Banks and credit companies, tired of waiting, had come knocking. She was drowning in debt, the kind that swallows you whole. Eventually, she was forced to sell her house, the one she filled with all those ill-gotten gains, and move into a modest apartment on the city's outskirts. "Ethan, you hear about your mom?" I asked one evening, the news still fresh on my mind. He sighed, a deep, weary sound. "Yeah, I did. Can't say I'm surprised, but..." His voice trailed off, lost in the complex web of emotions that comes with family. Part of me hoped this would be a wake-up call for Sylvia, a harsh lesson in responsibility and consequence. Maybe now she'll learn, right? About managing money, thinking ahead? Ethan just shook his head, looking out the window. "I hope so. I really do. But people don't change overnight." In our little home, life bloomed in unexpected ways. Our biggest news wasn't about Sylvia or the past, it was about the future. I was pregnant. The realization hit us with a mix of joy, awe, and a tiny bit of fear. We were going to be parents. "I'm reading everything I can get my hands on," I told Ethan, my nightstand a testament to my newfound obsession with parenting books. "But you know what? The most important thing I want to teach our kid isn't in these books." He looked curious. "Oh yeah? What's that?" "Thrift. And not just saving money, but understanding its value, respecting it." I was determined. Our child would learn from our past, from Sylvia's mistakes and our own. Ethan wrapped an arm around me, his smile warm. "I think that's perfect. We'll teach them about hard work, saving, and spending wisely. They'll grow up knowing how to manage their money, unlike..." He didn't need to finish. We both knew who he meant. Our little house, once a dream delayed by betrayal and greed, was now a home filled with love and soon, the laughter of our child. It was a fresh start, a promise that we'd do better, be better. And as for Sylvia, we both hoped that this might be the beginning of her own new chapter, one where she found her way out of the financial chaos she'd created. Life in our new home was good. It was real. And every day, it reminded us of where we'd been and where we were determined to go, not just for us, but for our growing family.